Let's play ball. Welcome into the Talkin Ball podcast and conversation, the first edition of what will be a season-long and hopefully many year-long conversation, talking ball, talking baseball, certainly here in baseball season. We'll switch it up when the balls change, maybe some football in the fall, but here we are. We're one weekend into the college baseball season 2026, and I'm Erin Hogan. He's Ty Harrington. We thought, you know what? Ty joins me on Game Time on 102.7 ESPN every weekday morning during the college baseball season, or once a week during the college baseball season. Always a good 10 or 15-minute conversation. We thought, why don't we take this to a larger audience? We know there's a passion for college baseball, and the Longhorns, of course, Texas State Bobcats, the SEC. So we'll do this every week and dive deep. Obviously, Ty Harrington with a 30-year relationship with the game of college baseball as a player, a coach at Texas State, a player at Texas, and a grad assistant at Texas. So you have a deep appreciation for this game. So we're excited to do this and talk to the fans, and hopefully you share it and spread it out. The Talkin Ball podcast, share it with your friends. We'll preview SEC series and upcoming series for Texas, the big games in the conference, the big games around the country, the big stories. And it'll be every week, Ty. So what better than talking baseball for an hour or so?
Not much that I can think of, but I could tell you this. You did me a favor by saying it was only a 30-year relationship with college baseball. It's 40-something now.
No, 40.
I think so. If I'd start doing the math, and my math is terrible, from 1984 to where we are today as a player and a coach, it's been, how about let's just say it's been a long time, but it has been a relationship. That is a great way to put it, and a great relationship.
Yeah, well, and I know you and I have talked many times, and I think one of the reasons this Talkin Ball podcast will be a hit and people will enjoy it is there's maybe not enough coverage. We see on ESPN, and they do college game day for men's basketball and now women's basketball. Obviously, college football gets its college game day. You and I have kicked around the idea of doing ESPN should have a college game day for baseball season on Saturdays, because the talent's never been higher. The veteran, these guys are older players. Guys are giving up on the whole minor league dream and coming to college to get developed and play against great competition in great programs, in great conferences like the SEC. You got great players, and then they're going straight to the big leagues, essentially, coming out of college these days, and we see them on a major league roster within 6 months of their draft pick. This is where college baseball is right now. And as you said, more than 40 years in the game. It's never been a higher level of play.
It's never been this mature. I can date you back to the 80s, 90s, when I became a head coach in junior college. The draft and follow was such a huge deal, and without going into details about that, it meant that the draft could go anywhere from 50 rounds to 80 rounds. So think about all the guys that were getting drafted back then that were leaving and going to chase their dream.
Sure.
Right? And so if I could count on or write down every time a kid said, that had a choice to stay at Texas State or go to junior, wherever I was, that said, Coach, it's always been my dream to play professional baseball, and they were signing. I was like, that's all of our dreams, right? But point is, now when COVID hit, which was a terrible time in our world for multiple reasons, when COVID hit, at the time they shut sports down, and then in, I think it was 2020 or 2021, they started extending kids an opportunity to play. They cut the draft down. And then Major League Baseball decided, you know what, we're going to cut some of our minor league teams out, all right, for a cost. Remember the discussion about, I can't believe minor league players are only making $1,200 a month, right?
Yep.
All right, so, okay, we're going to up their pay, but in order to do that, we're going to eliminate teams. All those guys, like, the Dodgers and the Red Sox and the Yankees all had like 8 teams in their minor league system. So all of this came about the same time, and you started to see a difference in college baseball. About the time I got lucky enough to be a part of doing broadcasts, for ESPN and Flow Sports and different people, I started to see the game, the small pieces of the fundamental of the game started to get better. Now you look up college athletics. Agree to disagree. That's not for me to decide. I know where you stand personally about players being paid. I personally think college baseball players should have been paid. 11.7 was what we were dealing with 30 guys and 35 guys on a roster. You imagine what a baseball player, their family were having
dividing up those
pay.
under 12 scholarships for all those players, and who gets what. And that's not an easy job for a manager.
No, it's not, but it's not an easy job for the parents.
No, yeah.
Right? So now you're making a choice as to, now we have the NIL or we have rev share, however these different tools they are to compensate players. And the game, then they cut the draft down again. And so now the game is, if you can go to University of Texas, or you can go to Texas State, or you can go wherever that is, that you can have a full scholarship. You can make NIL and make that a part of your family's finances. And then you can go develop for 3 years. And what professional baseball said was, college baseball's gotten so good, we're going to allow college baseball to develop these guys. And then when they're juniors or seniors or super seniors even, then we're going to invest millions of dollars into what we feel like is the product we're going to see for maybe a brief stint in minor league baseball, and as you just mentioned, headed to the big leagues. So it's college baseball, and they're allowing college baseball to develop the players now and the prospects.
Well, and they're trying to narrow down the mistakes, right? Then when you have that level of minor leagues, you're just casting a big net and like shrimp boats or something, and then you hope the best players rise to the top, but you're not going to be able to evaluate. But now, because these kids play 2, 3, 4 years of college baseball now, the analytics, the data, you can see how many they've gotten over 500 at bats. Pitchers have thrown over 1,000 pitches or innings or whatever, and they can see spin rates and bat velocity and all the things that lead. Okay, I don't have to evaluate this player on an old scout's eyeball. I got his eyes. He's a real good player, real good athlete. Well, now I've got 3 or 4 years, mountains of data of what kind of ball player this is, and that's happening for the major league teams when they evaluate as you said, the shrunken draft, which is keeping more players in college for longer now. It also helps the college programs in the portal. That guys that started a smaller program, they racked up 2 years of at-bats. We'll get to Texas coming up, a kid like Aiden Robbins at Seton Hall.
Yeah.
He's a monster. And Texas is like, oh, that's the guy we need to play center field for us. And it's not a guess thing. This kid can hit and can play at the high college level.
I think the first part of your statement, on the pro baseball side, the hitters are always the hardest ones for them to evaluate. I would love to see what millions, if close to how many millions it was, that guys that got drafted in the first 3 rounds that never made it to the big leagues or never even beyond AA, right? Because they're trying to guess whether an educated professional guess whether that guy was going to play in the big leagues or not. Well, now I would love to look 10 years from 2 years ago, so 8 years from today. What does that number look like now? Are we getting our picks right now? Because we're allowing college baseball, we're allowing maturity, a physical and emotional baseball player to mature, to go through these programs that are facing. You brought up this morning, Ruger Riojas was up to 97. Every arm that went out there at Globe Life this past weekend, with the exception of maybe 3 or 4 arms, were 92 to 98.
Yeah.
So you're evaluating these hitters based on the data and the velocity, the swing miss, all those things, whiff, all those things go into play. Now, you have a better evaluation of it.
Yep.
And emotionally. Think about what you were when you were 19 years old.
Yeah.
And think about where you were when you were 22 years old. And it's a difference, a huge difference. The average age, and I got this the other day, it was crazy. The average age in college baseball is 21.9 years old.
Wow. That is so different than what it was in your day, and even between your day, my day, and then it was the kids were running off to the minor leagues, playing in the high A leagues. They were riding buses. Our good friend Quan Cosby out of Mart, Texas, and all went up and got in the West Coast leagues and Pacific Coast League and the long road trips. Decided to come back and play some football for Texas back in the day. It's the Talkin Ball podcast. Erin, Hogan, Harrington. It's brought to you by the law office of David J. Lopez. We got great partners on the show. David is one of them. We'll tell you all about him coming up at davidjlopezlaw.com on Talkin Ball. Okay, so scene set. When we know college baseball is at the highest level, and we see it with Texas. Year 2 with Jim Schlossnagle. We're going to talk about their first 4 games and what's to come with Michigan State this weekend, and what we can take from 4 games of sample size. But you were, you mentioned up in Arlington, you were a part of the Flow Sports broadcast of the Shiner Showdown, the Shiner Hospital Showdown up there in Arlington, where you had some power programs, 3 out of the Big 12, 3 out of the SEC. 2 of them Texas will see on their schedule this year in Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. Plus Arkansas was up there. Yep. And then Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and TCU all up there. And just pick your brain a little bit on what you saw. You got to see three SEC teams, 3 Big 12 teams. Oklahoma was really the story coming out. They went 3-0 and outscored their opponents. I think it was 32-6. So they, Skip Johnson teams can pitch. They can really hit and are very athletic. You mentioned the good defense. So Oklahoma, kind of the storyline. What other headlines can we look at because you said something to me that I think is important in these early stages. You can play well or you just be a good team, right? I mean, you can see a team that's just played a really good weekend, and you combine that with, but that's a real good team, right? I mean, you can see that pretty quickly with a team like OU, even Arkansas, even TCU.
Yeah, like you can win. If you have a good enough team and if you're good enough on the mound, you always have a chance to win, right? That's just the way it is. But I thought this weekend, the physicality, this is what I took away from the weekend. The physicality of Arkansas, OU, Vanderbilt, and TCU was really, really impressive. And what I mean by that, in this weekend, I think there were 19 home runs hit. Now, I already heard people were texting me and tweeting out that, oh, my God, the balls are juiced again and all this kind of stuff. I don't know anything, how that come. I don't know where they, if
I
that's
do know
real,
there is
not
talk
real.
up in Arlington. They're trying to juice the park a little bit because it's become a real hitter's park of late. I don't know if they've changed the flow systems in Arlington because last year, I think by last year by the analytics and the data, Arlington Globe Life or the Rangers played as one of the the lower slugging percentage ballparks for everybody. Hitters, road teams, home teams. I don't know. Maybe they juiced it, but you got to see the ball flying out for 3 days.
It was flying out. It might be the aluminum bat, but
yeah.
It was flying out of there. I think it had a lot to my original statement about the physicality of these teams. If you go through the physicalness, and it gets confusing sometimes, I think, for people when they start talking about baseball players. When you say, hey, somebody's really physical. When Arkansas gets off the bus, it looked like the 1920 Yankees. They're
big.
They're big, physical guys. That's what I'm trying to say. They're athletic. They same for OU. They were big. I was comparing size to position by position with different teams that they were playing and everybody that was playing from an evaluation perspective. And I thought they were really physical and also thought they were very athletic. I thought OU had quite a bit more foot speed as well. Their outfield play was really good, along with their infield play was very consistent. Arkansas the same way. Their infield play was good. And to me, if you can play defense early in the year where you haven't had a ton of live game pressure ground balls. There's a difference between taking a ground ball, if I go out in the backyard and hit you a fungo ball, or if you take it in an inter-squad game, off your buddy's bat that you've seen him hit 100 times, to all of a sudden you got a game pressure ball to your right or left that you got to go away, so whatever that might look like, and you got to make that play to prevent a run or whatever that looks is different. And I thought OU and Arkansas responded to the defensive side of the ball. Vanderbilt had a chance to beat TCU in Game 1 through a ball away on a strikeout that basically gave TCU an opportunity to win, and they took advantage of it. So defense came into play, but overall it was 92 to 97 miles an hour, all and 80 to 85 mile an hour breakers, and sliders that were rolling anywhere from 86 to 89 at different times, cutters up to 90 miles an hour, change-ups that were swing miss. And so I would tell you that the talent level at that tournament this opening weekend was mind-blowing, along with the 62,000 people that came through the gates and came to watch opening weekend in Arlington. Wow. How about that?
Yeah, that's part of why we're doing the
62,000.
That's why we're our man David J. Lopez is going to be one of our title partners. Huge baseball fan out of the Valley, Corpus Christi. He's like, man, I'm jumping. I love college baseball, but this is never. You said it's 62. I think there were 30,000+ for the TCU game on Saturday night.
Yeah,
25,000 people or whatever. 62 through the weekend, and you've got a tournament. Texas will be playing in a tournament down at Minute Maid Park in 2 weeks, right? They're going down to the Houston event. They'll see Coastal Carolina and Baylor. Some really good competition at it's now Daikin Field, I guess it's called now. And then you got a tournament this weekend, right? There's another one of these February where you get good weather.
Yep.
Don't have to worry about rainouts. You get to see multiple teams, different talent levels. What's your game what are your games this weekend?
Yeah, so you got Nebraska, Louisville, Auburn, Kansas State. I'm leaving somebody out that are all top 25 type teams. All have had great weekends. Now Auburn had a bad loss last night. Cincinnati, I think, shut them out 8-0 on a Tuesday. But come to find out, after listening to Butch Thompson this morning in the interview, their number one pitcher's down and their best hitter's down right now. So they'll be back, but they're down for at least 3-4 more weeks. So those types of things if you can find those replacements, this is the old coach coming out. If you find those guys that can replace them, then you get those guys back, you've developed some depth along the way too, right? And you turn something negative into something maybe positive that by midseason is better for you. But the tournament again this weekend and then next weekend. I mean, it's 3 straight weekends that Globe Life has done. And now what they've done, Rev Sports, who's a subsidiary of Texas Rangers, what they have done now. And they do entertainment, they do concerts, they do you name it, they do it. Development. These guys have got their hands. It's unbelievable. They own a couple independent teams. They are branching out in so many ways. And they bought a handful of other tournaments in Arizona. And so what they have seen and discovered is something you and I are sitting here, and part of the reason why you and I are sitting here is that college baseball is what it is right now. I mean, it's a lucrative opportunity, and if somebody can figure out how to jump in there early enough like they have and create an experience for these coaches, for these programs, and for the fans, then you're on to something big, and which is what they've done, and which is why Globe Life is, the opening 3 weekends.
So many questions come from that. We'll get into Texas here coming up on our first installment of Talkin Ball. Speaking of Louisville, here you're going to see this weekend that Texas plays Michigan State this weekend, and they dropped 2 out of 3 to Michigan State out of the Big Ten. So, but from a coach's perspective, I know you've played in those tournaments before at Texas State. The advantage is obviously you get to go play not a true road game like you'll play come conference time, but you get to get out, get your team together, stay in hotels, kind of rep that with your ball club, but also see 3 different teams. You don't have to deal with weather delays and rainouts. And as you said, with Rev Sports and the folks in Arlington, they treat you well, right? It's kind of like a cool trip where you get treated like kings, and you help a great charity typically that they tie it to. I think that's great. And what is the advantage coaches like Schloss will have in 2 weeks and the other teams had this week and next? What do you take from those?
Well, first of all, let me say this. Every head coach loves to – you got to travel at some time, okay? You got to play on the road at some time. But every college coach loves the idea you go play on a neutral site. Get out of somebody's backyard.
Yes.
Get out of that fan base. Get out of that. Let's go neutralize the other team. Let's go find them. Let's go put them in a neutral park. So if you can do that, people want to do that. So if you're going to leave, they want to go play in a tournament setting. The beauty of this is at the Globe Life is that you just mentioned it's 72 and sunny in there. So you're playing. And the moment you step off the bus for the practices on Thursday, they are right there going, what do you need? How can I help? Right? When you have people that are willing at the professional level to put on a tournament that are coming up to you going, what do we got to do to make this better? How can we – they travel around. Let me tell you how involved this group is. They travel around. Tournament's over, all right? All 3 weekends are over. In a month, they're going to send their crews out to every team that played in this tournament. They're going to sit down, either have dinner or lunch with the coaches and the staff and go, hey, what'd you think? How can we make it better?
Yeah.
Now, you think about now as a business plan, that's great for everybody, right? That's the way life and business is supposed to be anyhow.
Correct.
But they're paying attention, don't step on that piece of grass. No, we can't practice because, we're a big league team and we got this coming up. No, we can't do that. No, which is what coaches don't want. They want somebody to go, hey, I'm still trying to make my team better.
Yeah.
Right? I need practice time. On a game day, it counts 3.5 hours. 3 hours on your timesheet, regardless of how long it is, pregame practice, and in the game. So coaches this time of year want that huge window in there on their work schedule for their players to take advantage of. And give me cages, give me moments, give me an opportunity, whatever that is. And these guys have figured that out at Rev Sports, and that's why everybody keeps coming. The repeat people that come in there is unbelievable. Arkansas is booked through 2031.
Well, and their fans travel, too.
But that's insane.
The
they
Big
took
Suey.
my hotel. That was unbelievable.
Well, I love that insight. That's what we're going to get on Talkin Ball is your connections behind the scenes and seeing that up close and why coaches want that kind of stuff. And you can imagine it. Neutral site, but weather-controlled. Great treatment of your team. But as you said, when you're talking about that, you're talking about NCAA hours, right? You get 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
Well, it's 3 hours, but you really were at the ballpark and together as a team for 6-7 hours, right?
Yeah, on the full work day.
Yeah,
full 8-hour work day.
And then you only put down 3 on the sheet, so it really helps your team grow against good competition. And you mentioned, then we're going to get into Texas and what we saw from them last weekend. We'll preview the Michigan State series. Also, Texas State, the Bobcats off to a 3-1 start. They swept Niagara first weekend, but then lost last night to Baylor, who Texas is going to see down there in Houston. We'll talk about the Baylor Bears. But the pitching velocity you talked about, I want to double back on that because that goes back to the bigger conversation about where college baseball is and how Major League Baseball, by shrinking the amateur draft in the summertime, because baseball's made some smart decisions, I think, under Rob Manfred. I mean, shrinking that, and it was for cost, it was for dollars, but and to avoid the mistakes of, as you said, I said, shrimp boating, where you're just trying to bring in as many prospects as you can, and the best will rise to the top. Let's actually wait and see these guys hit for a while and develop. But the facilities and the program and the technology, you mentioned Ruger Riojas up to the mid-90s. He was a bullpen arm, down at UTSA, upper 80s into the lower 90s. Talk to us, and you talked to me about this on Game Time on our visit this week. But how do you, for a young kid out there, a parent that's got a young guy, how do these pitchers like Ruger, who was a really good athlete at Wimberley High School, off to UTSA, how does he go from mid-80s to upper 80s maybe in high school to now he's hitting 97 and he's a Friday starter in the SEC? What is that development curve? And also speak to the fact that Jim Schlossnagle in Texas and these top programs have those type of facilities and training programs to develop these kids into young men that are playing much better than they did when they walked in the door.
So let's start with the first part that is imperative. And if you're going to be able to be a tremendous player, it is the athleticism. Look, it is a special select group of people that get to play this sport each level that you go up. We all get eventually eliminated for the most part, with the exception of professional big league players.
Except Ohtani.
Right? Yeah, Ohtani. That's different. He is different, by the way. But you have to be athletic. And so for Ruger Riojas, in his situation, he was a good athlete in high school. Threw sidearm, was an infielder, was athletic, but had this fast twitch about him. And then the first time I saw him, his freshman year, he's at UTSA, he comes in relief in the Texas State game, and he's 88, 89, up to 90, and you're like, and fastball was really explosive. And in the top of the triangle, he was able to elevate his fastball, four-seamers, and get guys to chase. A young guy, that's danger zone. Like if you go in that space up here and you miss, your deposit is usually out of the park or double. That's right. So, but he was able to that night throw his fastball up there, and I was like, wow, how about that? And it's at 90, right? So that means he's got high spin rate. So they had moved him up on top. So throughout his career, he leaves UTSA, he comes to the University of Texas, and now he's in the pitching lab with the
arm
with
farm.
The arm farm, the master, and Max Wiener, who is a pitching, I don't know, savant is probably the best way to put this. He understands the body movements, and he understands how to remember the first part, how to take an athlete and utilize and maximize his abilities as an athlete. And he teaches them how to, whether it's the different types of pitches or the types, grips or whatever they're trying to do. He has figured out how to maximize an athlete. So when you do that and you have a repeatable delivery and you are an athlete and you can repeat. Think about this. When you're playing golf, you make a great swing, right? And you feel like, well, there you go. I got it. Well, you got to make the same swing 2-3 minutes later, and you don't. Well, there's an athleticism that gets involved in that, right? And there's a repeatable ability to do something. And what Ruger is he's a tremendous athlete. And what Max has done is he has taken his abilities and taught him 3 different pitches, but he's taught him how to maximize what's within him and his body structure and his athleticism. And it is electric now. I mean, holy cow. I saw a preseason practice before the alumni game, and Ruger went out and threw, and I was just like, you see why he's on the Friday end of it. He's not getting up 2 times a week, 3 times a week in relief. It gets tiring when you start to do that. So, and remember now, college baseball, we'll talk about this more. College baseball is 4th and 1. What I mean by that, every game's 4th and 1.
Yeah.
You're going for it, and you got to win. You got to make it. And you don't. It's not 2nd and 6 like it is in pro baseball, where you can go, we still got 2 more plays. Let's figure it out. And so I think that's part of what has happened for Ruger. He's a tremendous athlete. Watch him go field a ground ball. Yeah. I mean, it's impressive.
Yeah, and that, you combine just the raw athleticism, good coaching at Wimberley, good coaching at UTSA. He grows into his own body. Plus, he's into the strength and conditioning program that Jim Schlossnagle has always made a staple of his programs wherever he's been. Because you see, Ethan Mendoza's on the Baseball America first week, all first week team. He had 2 home runs. He's now hitting balls over center field with his 15 pounds of muscle, and that's impressive. And but that's what goes back to the Arlington thing. So all these programs they don't all have Max Wiener, but they have their development, and you're seeing all these guys 92 to 97. Yeah. And this is what Major League Baseball is loving. Oh, look at all these power arms that are developing properly, that are getting to face really live competition and good teams, and get coached by guys like Max Wiener, which makes, for the industry of the game, college baseball, pro baseball, just makes it all better because it's fun for all of us to watch a Wyatt Langford go from the SEC at Florida to the Rangers outfield, or the kid Cam Smith of the Astros from the Florida State outfield right into the Astros outfield last year, which is crazy. And obviously Paul Skeens, the best example of that, from Air Force to LSU to now starting the All-Star game and mowing down the best. That's to me, and you've seen it for more than 40 years in college baseball as someone who's done, covered radio on the radio and media in Austin for 30 years. The growth of this, what I've always said what makes the football industry such a growth positive is the connection between college and pro, right? The confluence of college players who then get into the combine and get into the draft, and then the NFL players take them, and you've gotten to see them for 2 and 3 years and develop, and who's going to get Arch Manning next year becomes the big question. That's where some people are real college football fans and really don't care about the NFL, and then there's East Coast and passionate NFL fans that don't know much about college football, but the process brings them together. And if you're a Packers fan that don't give a hill of beans about high school football or college football, you start to follow it because that might be Matthew Golden might be my next wide receiver. So I want to watch him at the combine and those type of things. College baseball, I think we're getting to that, to where because as you said, there were so many levels of minor league baseball. These kids would get drafted and you wouldn't see them for 2, 3, 4 years, maybe however longer into the big leagues. Oh yeah, I remember that guy. Yeah. Well, now we're seeing him fast track, and so now as a Astros fan or a Rangers fan or whatever your favorite team is, you're going to want to watch more college baseball because he might be a star for you by next year or within 18 months. I think that's another positive to the growth trajectory of college baseball right now and the whole baseball industry.
I think, yes. So, as you're talking about, I've never really thought about it that way. People will take it from the foundations and the growth from college to professional baseball. You're seeing it happen quicker, which is what you're saying. You're not getting lost as an 18-year-old that was sitting down at the bottom of the rookie team and took too long, which is a challenge for anybody. And you've seen those guys come out quicker. But I wouldn't argue with anybody about this, other than it's my opinion, and everybody's entitled to theirs on this. But the radio and TV, ESPN Plus, particularly, who has the largest platform, Flow Sports, who I work with some, and then conference channels. When they started streaming college baseball, you got into somebody's house.
Yes.
Right? You got into their home. You didn't have to drive to the ballpark to go watch it. You didn't have to take 5 hours out of your day, 4 hours your day to get there. Now you can stay at home, cook dinner, hang out with your kids, and watch, you're sitting there looking at this TV on right now, and people, all of a sudden, college baseball was in your house. And so, and everybody's got a different opinion about this, but it's being done better right now. But it has had a tremendous influence on people's interest on college baseball. Podcasts like what you and I are doing. And let me say this too, for everybody, I scroll through social media now, and there's more and more podcasts, more and more people doing things about college baseball. More power to them. I'm a fan. So everybody, whoever's got one, wants one, keep doing it, because you're just promoting a sport that is growing leaps and bounds, that was always behind because it was 11.7 scholarships, and there wasn't a ton of revenues, spewed out into the facilities, and now there is. When you look around the SEC, the facilities are crazy.
Yeah.
What these guys are playing in. Butch Thompson this morning in an interview from Auburn, you couldn't get a ticket. Arkansas, Dave Van Horn told me people were offering them millions of dollars, just crazy amounts of money just to get a suite.
Yeah.
And they can't do it because there's a waiting list for it. And if you think about what that looks like from a business model, and you look like what it is, or what it is now from in the 80s when I played to where we are, it is crazy beautiful.
Wow.
And it is it's exciting.
Yeah, well, to the point of it's in your house now. For folks, Longhorn fans, on Saturday, you had a 2:00 game that got moved back to noon because of the weather. Then they said, well, it's coming faster. We got to go to 6:30, and now your Valentine's night plans are screwed up. So you're probably watching it on your phone while you're trying to have a dinner with the lady friend, right? So, you're watching the game on your phone now, which you can do, which again further grows the game. You can keep up with it much easier. The streaming services are huge, no doubt about it. Okay, we're going to dive into Texas and what we learned over a first 4-game start that's 4-0. Last 2 wins, both Sunday and then Tuesday night over Lamar, run rule victories. And Schloss was kind of bumming. He's like, man, we need those. I want to get some more arms run out there, and we're closing them out too quick. We'll talk about it. I want to tell you about my buddy David J. Lopez. As I mentioned, he's from Corpus originally. Huge baseball fan, even more baseball fan than football or basketball, but he's a lifetime Longhorn. He's got a great law office, and it's a personal injury advocacy law office. David wants to help people right in Central Texas. He lives here in Central Texas with his family, and he wants to help you if you've been affected by the negligence of another, an accident on the highways or at work. If insurance companies are involved, David wants to hear from you because you need an advocate, and David wants to be that. He'll be working directly with you with David's firm. You don't get pushed off to another attorney down the hall. You're going to get David working directly on your case. Never be pushed off. He will directly work with you. That's small firm feel, white glove concierge service, but the same level of legal fight you would expect anywhere, but actually better because David's going to go to work for you. Again, don't go it alone. Insurance companies are going to fight for their best interest, not yours. There's always a free consultation at David J. Lopez Law. There's a no-win, no-pay policy. So if they don't get paid, you don't get paid. The same thing. It's the law office of David J. Lopez. Clients make more money with their firm. Personal Injury Advocacy, 400-0601, or just put the website in your contacts. DavidJLopezLaw.com. That's DavidJLopezLaw.com. And we'll get his graphic up here next time for our episode number 2. But let's dive into the Longhorns. And I know you were up in Arlington, and but you've been close to the program at Texas leading up to it, talking to Jim Schlossnagle about the team. And for me, doing a radio show every morning, we did the previews, and here's what we here are the 9 portal transfers like Carson Tenney and Aiden Robbins and all these guys. These are going to have impactful players. They had 12 returning players, including Dylan Volantis and the aforementioned Ruger Riojas and Luke Harrison and Thomas Burns. And then a guy like Adrian Rodriguez, now healthy, playing shortstop. Ethan Mendoza, the bulked up Ethan. So you have this 12-person core group that's coming back from year 1 under Schloss. 9 portal guys, and then a top-rated recruiting class out of high school with 20 players, including a kid named Anthony Pack Jr. that's already had an impact in the first weekend. I think he went 7 for his first 12 at-bats. Sam Cozart, a big right-handed pitcher that you saw at the alumni game, Coach, out of North Carolina, who I found out this morning wears size 18 shoes. And he pitched for the first time at Texas last night on a Tuesday night and went 4 scoreless innings. They can't find cleats for him. They had to drill cleats into his Nike shoes. So they're not going to make them for him. This is a big old boy. So great recruiting class, high school, solid core returning, especially on the starting pitching mound, and then 9 portal players. Is that kind of, from your conversation with Schloss and other coaches, is that the formula in this current age of NIL? You still want to recruit high school players and develop them, but you also want to bring in veteran players that can play.
Yeah, piecing together a roster is one of the most important things. Always has been, but now it's more fluid. When you start to look at, the number of, you would go get high school kids and a sprinkle of JC kids or whatever you wanted. Now you're seeing the depth is going to be out of your young players. Everybody still wants the best high school players. Texas is certainly one of those schools that's getting the best high school players, which you just saw with Cozart and Pack. Those guys are great examples of being able to step in and immediately make an impact. So they're getting the top tier guys, guys that can make an impact, guys that have the abilities, but then also maybe emotionally separate themselves from some of the other younger players. But then the portal part becomes, if you're a really, really young team, I don't know that that's the best diagnosis. I don't know that that's the best way to develop your roster, because we just mentioned at the beginning of this, the average age is 21.8 or 21.9 years old. So if you're taking 18 and 19-year-old guys out there, 4 or 5 of them at a time, to go out there competing against somebody who's 22, you're going to lose that battle more times than you're going to win it. And so I think what they have found is what fits for them, for their organization. I think everybody's going to be a little bit different. But for Texas, Jim Schlossnagle and his staff are always going to be on top of who are the best players, who fits our model. That's what they do. They have a model in mind for them, and it works for them. Could be totally different at OU. Could be totally different somewhere else. I just know that when you listen to those guys and you, more importantly, pay attention to the type of player, athlete they have. If you look at their position players, they're all utility. They can all play multiple positions.
Versatile
right?
guys.
What has happened? We've shrunk our rosters because the NCAA says we have to peel back our rosters meaning number of players on it, right? So if you're going to do that, then you better be able to have guys that can do multiple things and play multiple positions. Somebody goes down in center field. You've got somebody you can move over. From that moving over, you take somebody from somewhere else and took that. So they're capable because they're athletic. But Jim and their staff, they sit down and they plug this into their minds. Okay, we need this, this, and this. This is exactly what we need. And they are in tune with the portal and the high school players and professional baseball, who they're going to get through the draft and who they're not going to get. I think they're so in tune with it that they're going to put together a team every year that's going to compete for, going to Omaha and an opportunity to win that, because they put the work in. Yeah. I'm going to tell you right now, they utilize, you were talking about the data, you were talking about all those things. Every tool that they need to describe and to get their roster built, they utilize.
Yeah. To your example of versatility, the Longhorns have probably 4 guys that can play shortstop in a pinch. I mean, this is like when you were coming out with Coach Gus, and they recruit the top 5 shortstops in the state, and then we'll find a spot for them. Adrian Rodriguez is starting at short right now, at least the first weekend, but Tamo Becerra could play short, which he did at Stanford. Ethan Mendoza could slide over to short if he needed to. Then you've got like corner guys like Tamo's playing third, but Josh Livingston, the Wichita State transfer, is in there. Casey Borba's taking over at first base. And then in the outfield, you really have 3 center fielders running around out there with Aiden Robbins, Ashton Larson, the LSU transfer in left field, and then Anthony Pack Jr. with Jonah Williams mixed in there. Any of those guys could play center field, but they're playing the corners. So to your point, and then Carson Tenney behind the plate. That was the opening day lineup for Texas. Ethan Mendoza at the top of the order like he was last year. But again, he's one of the players of the week with 2 home runs, hitting with power. Talk about Ruger developing strength. Well, now those singles are now getting in a gap for Ethan Mendoza, and they're getting over the fence, which is fun to see. And boy, a player like Ethan who starts to see that power, that's all the hard work in the weight room. You start to see that ball flying out of the park now. You're like, oh, that's why I'm doing all those extra reps. You get to see that, and the fans are going nuts, and everybody wants his autograph. Chicks dig the long ball, Ty.
100%. 100%.
So Ethan was at the top of the order. Then you went Aiden Robbins, and then he's your Seton Hall transfer. I don't know if you got to see him this weekend, Ty, but man, he's got his eye black, all painted, and he brings energy. This guy is a big, as you talk about, physical athlete, and he hit a home run on the first night, long one. He showed pop, and then Adrian Rodriguez going both ways, right and left switch hitting. Carson Tenney, Josh Livingston, Casey Borba batting third. Casey, the stat sheet didn't light up, but he hit a couple of home runs foul that were long home runs.
What I heard.
He'll keep that between the lines. Ashton Larson, the LSU kid we mentioned, who's a really slick-looking, lean, really athletic outfielder from the left side. Temo had a big weekend as well, and then it was Anthony Pack, but it could be Jonah Williams at the bottom of the order. That's you filled out a lot of lineup cards in your day. That's a right-left combination, youth, veterans, switch, and plus you got guys coming off the bench. It's a pretty formidable lineup to try to get through 1 and 2 and 3 times, and that's what we've seen already through 4 games. It's hard to get through that lineup, multiple times.
So one of the hardest things, this goes back to just what we were just talking about, them putting together, knowing exactly what they want, knowing they've got a right-left matchup down the end, of a game, and or if somebody gets hurt, whichever it may be. If they're facing a left-handed breaker guy, they've got enough right-handed support in the lineup. They got a right-handed, just one of those wipeout slider guys. They got enough left-handed support that they can do the same. Injuries are full of it. And I want to go back to briefly to Mendoza. I went out and watched the game in the fall with Tech. And I remember walking out there, Greg Swindell and Zeke and I were sitting out there watching the game, and I looked over at Mendoza, and I was like, oh, my God. He's got ginormous. And not ginormous, but,
big for his size, yeah. Little guy.
And the reason I say that the physicality of the SEC and the physicality, that's what you better be. His freshman year, I was calling the game in Globe Live. He was at Arizona State. He and Thomas Burns both. And Burns was the Friday night starter against the Aggies that weekend. But Mendoza, struck 3 balls right back through the middle of the field. It was hitting the bottom part of their lineup in game 1. I remember going, "Where's this kid from?" And I was like, "This is South Lake." I remembered him from the state playoffs. I'd forgotten he'd gone to Arizona State, and he was an infield or shortstop. And then his progression physically to where he is. And then you just said something that's important, that his singles and his doubles or his balls he's hitting good now are finding their way out of the park and into the gap, right? When you try to create that as a swinger, you can't do it. You're going to miss. Your swing miss rate goes through the roof when you're trying to really get after ball, really try to hit it hard.
Or swing it, yeah.
Now it's within himself. It's within his athleticism, and now it's within his strength to be able to move the barrel enough with the authority that it needs, with mass behind it, providing the power behind it, and you're starting to see the example. He's not having to swing harder. He's swinging within himself, and he's being able to play within himself because he took the time to change his diet. And he took his time within Jim Schleichnagle's strength conditioning program, which has always been a staple of his programs, and you're seeing the end result of it now.
Yeah. It's fun to watch, and I know the sellout crowd on Friday night was excited to see his home run and Aiden Robbins' home run. Now, Carson Tenney is probably the biggest single addition to the program because you can speak to how important a catcher is behind the plate. Buster Posey Award winner. You think about Schloss and what they did. They replaced Rylan Galvan, who was a Buster Posey finalist, and is was such a core foundational piece to the team. You replace him with one of the other 3 guys that was up for that award from Notre Dame, Carson Tenney, who came here to win a national championship. He makes no bones about it. He said the bar at Notre Dame was one thing. The bar here is winning the title.
He's right.
And he wants to do that. And, first weekend, only 1 hit in the first 3 games against UC Davis, but 7 walks, Coach. And then 2 home runs against Lamar Tuesday night, one of them 116 miles an hour off the bat. That's a guy that's look a little deeper into that stat book. 7 walks tells you he's seeing the ball pretty good.
7 walks tells you he's mature.
Yeah.
Don't forget, I get grumpy with people with this. They go, "Well, he just walked." I was like, that's the same thing as a single, back through the middle. But better, because you had to get 4 more pitches or 5 pitches out of the pitcher.
Yeah.
So it's even at a higher, praise limit for me. But it showed his maturity. Let me ask you a question. And if anybody's when they're watching and listening to this, think about this in your mind. You're Carson Tenney, you come in here at the University of Texas. You're one of the highest thought of players coming into the portal. What do you think you want to do in game 1? What would you want to do in game 1 but to hit one 400 feet to left field, be able to stand there and almost look at it and just light that whole crowd up, sellout crowd, as you just said, right? That's what you would love to do. What'd he do? He took his walks.
Yeah.
Patiently took his walks, maturely took his walks, knowing that I'm not going to chase, I'm not going to expand the zone, as much as I'm sure he was sitting in there going, "Oh, my God, just give me one something in the middle part of the plate. Let me show what I can do." But he showed his maturity. So the reality for a coach, he did what he was supposed to do, and he showed who he is. And then when they did decide to come in and try to throw to him last night, then he shows what he can do.
Yeah. I'm sure the scouting report was, "Hey, man, got to throw in some strikes because he's going to, we don't need base runners." And he deposits it 416 miles an hour off the bat.
Well, think about this. Robbins, A-Rod, and Carson trying to get through Mendoza and Borba, Pack now Chew. If you brought this up, if you're trying to get through that lineup 3 times, which is what a starting pitcher is supposed to do, even on Friday night, and that lineup starts to bust you up, they're going to get to your bullpen quicker than you want to get to your bullpen, and then that opens the door for what the rest of the weekend might look like. But that is a very, very skilled and talented, mature lineup.
Yeah, and I know you saw him as a highly, highly recruited high school player, but Adrian Rodriguez healthy now, and he's going to bat, at least where it looks, between Aiden Robbins and Carson Tenney, 2 super mature, and Ethan Mendoza is going to be on base. How many good pitches is he going to see? And that kid, he's a threat to. Even his outs this weekend were barreled up and hit hard. He is such a good hitter.
He has this innate ability to, his eye-hand coordination is through the roof. He has figured out, I don't know if his dad put him on a skateboard when he was 2 years old, put a bat in his hand and said, "Hit this while you're moving," and figure out how to watch the ball and the bat make contact. I don't know what they did, but if you watch him, how late he can see the baseball back into the plate and how he has this little wrist and hand flip when he does get fooled or when he does get out front. He has the ability to stay in position and in place athletically, and to use his eye-hand coordination is through the roof. If you really dig in there, and some of you guys that are watching this love baseball, if you slow his swing down, watch him when he catches a breaker or a changeup, and just watch how he has the ability, even though he's moved forward and had a positive move in his stance, that hand is his ability just to flip it and flick it is just incredible. And it is a gift, one that has been developed over time through his workaholic abilities too. Because don't think for a minute that kid doesn't work. He does.
Yeah.
I mean, he's an everyday worker, and an everyday grinder. So, yes, look, to get through that, oh, yeah, and by the way, you decide, well, I'm going to go make a move to face a right-handed hitter or left-handed hitter in front of him late in the game. Well, you're just staying with him for one guy because this guy's coming up and he does it on both sides of the plate.
Yeah, what a luxury. And a kid like Josh Livingston, a fifth-year player, Wichita State, a lot of pop. He's from the left side. Then you're back to Casey Borber. Then you're back to Ashton Larson. He's left side. So it's a real balanced lineup. And whether it's Jonah Williams or Anthony Pack at the bottom, almost a second leadoff, it's another left-hander. So real balanced lineup, experience, depth. We talked about Ruger. Luke Harrison was rock solid. Actually, the starting pitchers for Texas over the weekend, the three combined 1.77 ERA, whip of .75. But have to mention, because Luke Harrison had a rough start. He had he pitched the 6:30 game after it got moved around and the weather was rough. He hit a guy and walked a guy early, then settled down, and they ended up with 2 runs out of that. But from then on, he was throwing goose eggs. And, Dylan Valantis, he's already the SEC's co-pitcher of the week. I just want to say this to you, Coach, and you can go with it. But 7 innings, 21 outs, took him 78 pitches to get 21 outs. His average pitch per inning was 10.1. And you're talking about mowing down a lineup. Get it through it 3 times. That's what 7 innings is, right? In under 80 pitches. That is, pounding the strike zone.
That's efficient. That's pounding the strike zone is probably the best way to say it. But I don't know. Like you and I have talked about this before, and we may have talked about this morning. But I call him the cloud breaker because that breaker just comes straight out of the clouds. The depth, the from when that frame in his hand to where that ball lands. I'll find out. Actually, I'll ask Max what is the distance that it breaks, and what does that really look like? Well, that's the ability to spin the ball, but there are people who can do it like he spins it. They just can't consistently land it like he does. And if you watch, you going up there as a hitter. Back in the day, you would have gone, all right, I'm going to go up there and look for a first pitch fastball in the beginning of an inning or the second hitter in the inning. And you walk up there and you go, I'm going to sit in here tight. He's a left-handed, so I'm going to look middle away. A lot of left-handers like the first base side of home plate. So I'm going to go up there, shuffle up a little bit, maybe tighten to the plate and look to the middle. And then you think you're about to get a fastball, and he starts that breaker in the clouds, and then it just comes roaring downhill at you. And you try to figure out as a hitter how you're going to middle that thing. How are you going to get your barrel in the middle of that baseball to make great contact with it when it's at 78 to 82 miles an hour coming down a hill, and it'd be like dropping a baseball or a ball out of the clouds or out of your hand, your buddy's standing above you, and then you got to hit it as it's on the way down. Think about that and how challenging that is. Well, and then you tell them as a coach, you go, hey, guys, look, we're just going to take his breaker. Don't swing at it. We're going to take it. He can't land it for a strike. Well, yeah, right? Wham! And then he shows you, and this is a tremendous mystery to be able to do. If you watch him, he does it. He will start his breaker early in the count in the middle, in the white part of the plate. Okay, once he gets you where he thinks he'll throw a fastball to speed you back up. Then he moves the breaker to the right-handed hitters over to the third base side of the plate and throws it underneath him on the back foot breaker. And then about the moment you think that he's got this figured out, he'll take, particularly on the right-handed hitters, he'll take his breaker and move it to the other side. Yeah. And now he's come up with a changeup that gets you, by the time you think, well, I've got him geared in, I've got him pinned in, he's got to throw me a fastball, and then here comes a changeup off that same setting, and you're like, and he lands them. He's not about one of the biggest causes for a pitcher to come out of a game or not to get through the lineup is if their misses are big. If they have big misses, they're exerting more energy, and their misses, the count changes for them. And if there's a big miss with the pitch, if you throw me a breaker and you bounce it on a 0-0 count or 1-0 count, you know what I know you're not going back to?
That.
Your breaker. Yeah. Right? So how do I, as a hitter and as a coach, I start cheating with my players, telling them, whatever everybody uses, verbal, whatever the coaches say, sit on there. They'll tell their hitters, we want you to sit on this. If I don't think, or your miss rate with a certain pitch, we eliminate that pitch. You might chase it in an 0-2 count, but that's a chase pitch. But in the middle of the count, and he doesn't allow that. Luke Harrison, when he's at his best, he pitches backwards, uses his breaker and his slider. Now he's got two different types of breakers too. He had it last year. I think he's done a great job of reforming it. But he's got a bigger breaker. All of Max's guys are able to throw sliders or cutters, whichever fits their degree of a body better. But what's fascinating to me about Luke Harrison, if you watch him at a 90, he's 92 now, but he'll go to the top of the strike zone up here with his four-seamer once in a while, and those guys are thinking it's going to be a breaker and it's coming down, and they can't stay off of it.
Yeah.
And so he's gotten better, a lot better actually.
Yeah, Luke was such a fabulous freshman that had the injury and had to claw his way back. But again, back to mature. That's a word you're going to hear a lot from Coach Harrington here on Talkin Ball as we get in. It's our first episode. It's brought to you by the law office of David J. Lopez. But what do we think? So Michigan State's coming in 2-1, right, for 3 games. You are going to be calling some games this weekend for a Louisville team that dropped those 2 out of 3. So Michigan State's coming in feeling pretty good about themselves out of the Big Ten. We don't know much about them. It's a Big Ten team, but they have some good-looking athletes. And, again, they're going to come in with some confidence after their first weekend.
I think, I didn't get to hear Dan McDonald's interview this morning with Flow Sports to hear. The coaches will tell you what, they'll recap the weekend, what happened, particularly since it was the first weekend. And I didn't get to hear it. But I think everybody thought Michigan State historically is just okay. When it comes to having a really good baseball team, I think it caught everybody surprised. Not game 1, I think it was game 2. They beat them up pretty good.
Louisville's a really top-end team.
Yeah, and historically, college baseball is no different than college football. We can argue this all you want. Is if you get ranked early in the year out of assumption.
Yeah.
Right. You get and pedigree. So those two things, and if you had a couple of guys that you got at, recruiting wise that people can write about or think about or whatever, that you're going to automatically be thrown in the top 20, or how you ended the year before. Football's no different in my mind, but
it's not.
And so I think they, we'll find. I'll get a chance to see them this weekend. Maybe they had a bad weekend. Maybe they weren't ready. Maybe they've got some other guys. Maybe they got some injuries. Maybe Michigan State's that good.
Yeah,
we're going to find that out.
Well, we know last year, we want our Aggie fans to listen to Talkin Ball too. They started number 1 last year, and then they didn't make the tournament. There are no guarantees, and Texas has a really good team. Aggies are back and good, but it's a long grind, and that's what Talkin Ball is going to be all about. Week by week, we'll follow that grind, and we'll we're going to add elements to the show. Maybe if you're a musician out there and you want to write us a cool theme song or something for Talkin Ball,
that's right.
Throw that together. It's going to be organic from the ground. We got Ty and Coach Harrington with the absolute knowledge from behind the game. I'll try to drive the bus, and we'll add guests to it. Throw them up on Zoom or get them in here into our studio. Preview each series, especially the SEC series for the Longhorns, and Texas State. Texas State, how about them? They're off to a 3-1 start. We mentioned swept Niagara down I-35, and then lost to Baylor this last night, 14-4, Baylor out of the Big 12. Now they host Gonzaga this weekend, which is kind of a cool Pac-12 preview, right?
It is.
Kind of like that. That's 3 games at the Bobcat Ballpark against Gonzaga Friday, Saturday, Sunday for our Texas State Bobcats fans that we're gonna cater to and talk to. What have you seen from Coach Trout and his ball club this year?
Yeah, I know they feel really good. I had a chance to watch them, on a couple weekends early in January to go out, and then in the fall to go out and see them. I think they're athletic in the infield. They've got 3 interchangeable infielders. 5, and that can play different places. I think they've got a lot more lead in their tank, and meaning they've got more power in their lineup. Jacquez Stewart, who was here a year ago at Texas, and came up with some big hits, I think against Auburn or Georgia, I can't remember, is playing first base and outfield and hitting for them. I think he had a homer this weekend. They're more physical. That ballpark is set up for fly balls and home runs. I mean, it's a south wind ballpark, out to left field, right field even, when the wind's blowing out. It's a smaller ballpark than a lot of ones, certainly smaller than the Dish. And so I think they've got a lineup that's made for that. I know they've got more pitching depth. I know it was a 5-4 or 4-3 game last night till the 7th, and I think they gave up 7, had a bad inning. But prior to that, I think it was a really close game. They're better. And again, I think with the depth on the mound and their weekend starters are a lot more quality than what they've had the last year. And then I truly believe they're much more athletic, and I think they'll defend the baseball better as well. They're starting a freshman on the weekends too, Nolan Moore, the Bravos kid, who is a talent, a true talent. I mean, he's a 19-year-old beast of a kid with a 92 to 96 mile-an-hour left-handed fastball now. And so again, I'm from the Bravos, so I've seen him and I've seen this young man grow up. And so they do. I think they're much more talented. And it was not a great loss last night to Baylor, but how about the outfit from Baylor hitting 3 grand slams on opening day?
Yeah, the catcher.
That's insane. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's insane.
Was it the catcher? I can't remember. Yeah, he had three grand slams the same day.
So I got a tweet on what are the odds. Number one, that you get a chance. And then somebody in that later on the next day in the booth, Pat Combs, who does games too. Pat played at Baylor, then played in the big leagues, and Pat does same thing I do with Flo. And Pat we were talking about the kid, and he's an unreal kid too. But he was talking about they did this deal, talking about how odd it is and how unusual and what are the odds of it really ever happening. And then we found out that it had been done before.
Wow,
it had been done one other time in the history of baseball. And
3 grannies in one game, 1 9-inning game. That's insane.
It is insane, and just the opportunity is
to come up 3 times with the bases juiced.
Hey man, welcome to college baseball. I'm telling you, it is on the rise.
It is, and as we said, Texas will play Michigan State this weekend. Weather looks good, by the way, this weekend. Yeah. They'll play the Friday night game, Saturday and Sunday. Then it's UTRGV next Tuesday before we record another Talkin Ball podcast. And there, I saw, they played Kansas to open the weekend, and they lost 2 out of 3 in that series, but they won the opening night, and that place was packed. UTRGV has got the fan base down there in Edinburgh. That program, man, that feels like it's on the rise in this day.
They love baseball. They always have loved baseball. Derek Matlock, who is the head coach there, was my assistant for 6 years, and he is a devoted baseball guy, high school coach, and then became an assistant for us, and then went to West Virginia, then became the head coach at UTRGV, and he has built something down there that is so special and so fun. I think 5,800 at each of the games or something like that. And if you watch the games, there's tents just lined up in the outfield, these little deck-looking things all over the outfield, and it is fun. And they got a good team. Ragusa is one of their best hitters, a left-handed hitter. So when they when they come in for that Tuesday game, you'll recognize that they're a very talented team too.
All right, that's going to be next Tuesday night. So 4 games between now and the next Talkin Ball podcast. Next time we will jump in and obviously analyze what happens this weekend, what you see in your tournament, the Flow Sports tournament. Find that Flow Sports. You'll see Texas on the ESPN Plus app and the SEC Plus app. If you're watching also Texas State, that's the beauty of it. You can stream all these games and watch them along with us, and we'll be talking about them all year long on the Talkin Ball podcast, brought to you by the law office of David J. Lopez, online at davidjlopezlaw.com. I would also say that in addition to that, this next week episode, we'll start previewing that Houston series, where Houston is headed down to Talkin Park to play Coastal Carolina, which I know you're very familiar with that program from your Texas State days. They will play that Baylor Bears team while they're down there, which would be pretty cool. And then Ohio State, the Buckeyes down in Columbus. Down in Columbus, coming down from Columbus to Houston. So that'll be our next week's episode. So lock it in. If you enjoyed the baseball conversation, why wouldn't you? If you're watching this, you love college baseball, you like the Longhorns or Texas State or anybody, as we say on the Talkin Ball podcast, we will be breaking down each and every series. We'll have guests added to this thing, and we're just getting this thing warmed up, Ty. That was fun. We could keep going, but we know you're busy, folks. That's our coverage. But you got other points to make?
Yeah, one thing, and for the Aggie fans, which are
ton of them.
Yeah, a ton of them. I actually have them next weekend in Globe Life. They got Grahovac back.
Oh, he's slugging.
And Caden Sorrell, who I thought last year prior to his injury was going to have a chance to be Player of the Year, And so they offensively for sure, and defensively, I didn't think they played great defense last year. Defensively, they're much improved and a better team. If the bullpen holds up, you're looking at an opportunity that it could be a really special year and a special team and moment for them as well. So it's going to be fun.
One of the highlights of this show and this podcast and this year for Texas baseball will be that trip and Jim Schlossnagle back to College Station later in April.
Imagine trying to get a ticket to that series right now.
Security. Yeah, you might need that on the way down there with our buddy Jim. All right, Ty, thanks a lot. Awesome. Appreciate Luke and David J. Lopez Law. You can see it up here. It's Talkin Ball. Share it out. It's to be our YouTube page, wherever all our social media is dialed up, and Luke's going to put those together. Share it. If you love college baseball, send it around. It's so easy to do. Spread the word. Talkin Ball is live and coming at you with all the college baseball conversation you can have. It's Talkin Ball. Erin Hogan, Ty Harrington. We'll talk to you next episode.